Hello and welcome along to the Forza Italian Football Podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Conor Clancy, and returning to join me to talk about a really good week of Serie A action, it must be said, is the ever-present Vito Doria. Vito, welcome along.
Thank you, Conor. It's great to be here as always. And after the disappointment of the Italian national team, it's great to get back into Serie A action. And we weren't disappointed. There was lots to talk about and lots of excitement.
Vito, you've reopened the wounds there with that, but here to help us heal those wounds is returning Nicholas Carroll. Nick, it's good to see you again. How's everything back down in Australia?
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thanks, Connor. It's it's my first pod from Australia, so there you go, a bit of a first. Things are good. Australia's in the World Cup. I'm not going to talk about Italy because,
no
I don't
World
want
Cup
to.
chat, please.
Let's talk about Serie A and try and forget that disaster.
Yeah, I guess. Well, before we do move completely into Serie A, the ghost of the World Cup is still something that needs to be addressed because we saw Gianpiero Ventura got sacked last week, and president of the FIGC, Carlo Tavecchio, was determined that he wasn't going to resign. But today, the news broke that he has. So, Vito, I think that's generally good news for Italian football fans, right?
Absolutely. He was the wrong appointment from the start, and he had always courted controversy even before he was elected in. So for him to finally resign, especially after the failure to qualify for the World Cup, I think it's great and good riddance to him. Hopefully this is a catalyst for change in Italian football.
Absolutely. He's kind of the figurehead of that old boys club, really, that still kind of exists in Serie A, although with some of those moving on from their clubs and now Tavecchio leaving the federation, hopefully that is a sign of change that's going to be sweeping across Italian football. I think there's only one place to start here. I know there were plenty of big games this weekend, but when the Derby della Capitale happens, you kind of have to lead with that. And Roma won 2-1. It was probably more impressive than 2-1 would suggest from Roma. Nick, I'm going to start with you here, but it was a really exciting game, and it kind of went against all those long dead stereotypes held against Serie A. It was a high tempo, good quality. Both teams wanted to win, and they just got at each other. What did you make of it?
Yeah, as you said, it was a really exciting game. Roma, I think, probably came out as a lot of us thought in terms of dominant on the ball. But I thought Lazio were good as well. I don't think, obviously it's always hard to lose a derby, but I don't think there's much to be concerned about for Simone Inzaghi, particularly when you consider the 2 goals that were conceded, both off Bastos errors. So I thought Lazio's defence was quite strong. They didn't concede too much in terms of strong opportunities. They kept El Shaarawy quiet. Dzeko didn't have a lot of space to work with. So Lazio, I don't think there's much concern there, but of course Roma, they were strong. They deserved the win, I think. And I would say, to be honest, for them, I think it's not even that important how they won, but the fact that they won this derby, it's such a confidence booster under Di Francesco to, I guess, to almost send that message that they're not going to relinquish that number 1 spot in Rome, because Lazio, they've been in great form. I think we've said they're arguably the most consistent, or one of the most consistent teams in Serie A, but they've managed to topple them in this match, and they overtake them in the league. So I think it's going to be a nice little sub-competition between the 2 Roman clubs for this season. So I'm very much looking forward to the next derby, if this one was anything to go by.
Just before I throw it over to Vito, so Nick, you said it's going to be a little bit of a subplot there between the 2 Roman clubs. Where do you see that being? Like, what will that fight be for? Because personally, I have Roma as contenders after that.
I'm not going to go. I saw your little notes before this, and I saw the little title question mark, but I'm not going to go there. I don't think it's. We can talk about that. I'd say they're contenders for a Champions League position, both of the clubs. I would even say third or fourth is realistic, but I don't think title just yet.
All right. I did write about this after the game, which is available over on ForzaItalianFootball.com, of course. Basically, what I was really impressed by from Roma was not the fact that they just beat Lazio, which of course is impressive in itself, but the way that they did it. Because as you said, Lazio weren't bad, but Roma never really looked troubled. And then when Manolas stupidly had a moment of madness and gave away a penalty when there was absolutely no need to do so, Lazio kind of got a bit of belief after Immobile converted it. But even still, Roma just dug in, they fought, they battled. And that's something that we haven't really seen from them in recent years. One thing that they're always accused of is kind of being flaky, spineless team who just fold when the pressure's on. And they showed that they're capable of doing a lot more than in previous seasons this year. And with Juventus not being Juventus, I think the bar for the title is going to be a little bit lower this year. So I don't see why Roma can't compete for it. Vito, what are your thoughts on this? Roma won the derby. Is it just that, or can we read more into it?
At the moment, I would say that it is an important victory for Roma. And of course, winning the derby, you get bragging rights in the city. As for a title chase, I'm still convinced that, pardon me, that they need another season together with Monchi in his first season as sporting director and Eusebio Di Francesco in his first season as coach with the Giallorossi. I still think they've got a few teething problems, if you like. There's still more time for them to, of course, gel together and also just familiarize themselves with one another. But even with the squad that Di Francesco has at the moment, they're looking very competitive and they don't make as many silly errors as they usually would, aside from that Manolas moment, which resulted in the Lazio penalty.
David Schiavone, we know that name, has come into the comments and said Napoli, Juve, Inter and Roma will all compete for the title. Nick, I know you don't want Roma or Inter involved in that conversation, but it's looking like it is going to be more than a two-horse race this season, which I'm sure we all welcome. Right, so someone who was really impressive in this game, Rajan Angolan. We know he is brilliant, but Nick, he bossed it, didn't he?
Yeah, 100%. And probably the thing that impressed me the most is that there was a bit of an injury cloud going into this match around him. I think he picked up a knock during the international break. Well, he wasn't going to play for Belgium. And then to come in here and dominate like he did, he's just such a strong presence in that Roma midfield. And yeah, I mean, we've seen it time and time again, I guess. Maybe not as consistent this season as he was last season, but certainly when he's in this kind of form, he's near unstoppable, and he very much can and does change a match. So, if you took him out of that Giallorossi side, I could very confidently say that there's matches there that they're winning that they certainly would not be winning.
Yeah, more so than just his obvious, participation in the midfield. What really impressed me was that he was getting kicked up and down that pitch, particularly by Senad Lulic, but Lazio clearly targeted him. Whether it was because of his injury or because of his temperament, we know he can be a bit hot-headed. They set out to provoke him into doing something stupid or to injure him to get him up. And he just never reacted. He channeled that into just an absolutely brilliant performance. He kept his head cool at all times, as Roma did as a whole, to be fair to them. As we saw with Diego Perotti's penalty, he must have been the calmest man in Rome and the world when he took that. I've never seen a penalty hit. It was so good. Like, I've never seen a player walk to a ball more slowly. Nick, I know we disagree on this, but if he scores, let him do it. Vito, do you think that Lazio will be really disheartened by this defeat? I know it's always sore to lose in the derby, but could the wheels come off their early Champions League challenge?
They will be sore because they lost the derby, but I doubt it would be anything more than that. Based on what we've seen so far this season, they have been able to juggle both the Europa League and Serie A, so I believe that Inzaghi and his players, they'll be able to cope with two competitions at once and still be able to push for a Champions League spot.
All right, I'll stick with you. Ciro Immobile, he didn't quite do it for Italy, and he didn't quite look himself in the derby, I think it's fair to say. I know he scored, but it was a penalty, and he took it confidently, fair, but he wasn't quite at it. Do you think that's just one of those performances from him, and we shouldn't be reading too much into it? I know it might feel like I'm being harsh, but Lazio have been so good this season that you kind of need to pick on little things and kind of try and explore them. So is Immobile it's just a game where he didn't score and he'll be back hitting the ground running next week?
I still think there's a possibility of that. Another thing that Immobile might need to watch out for is to get that tag of being a flat track bully. It seems that in some big games, he perhaps probably hasn't stood out as much as he could or should be able to. But when comparing his performances with Lazio and that with the national team, I think it just goes to show what big difference it is when you have a coach who knows what he's doing and he can organise the team as well as motivate the players. That is what Simone Inzaghi is doing. He's really got Lazio playing well. They're playing for him, and there is a style of play, or there's a system in place. Whereas with Italy, Immobile did not get that service. There wasn't the organisation there, and Ventura was a massive flop. So big contrast there, and it can impact on players regardless of how good or bad they are.
Yeah, I guess the emotion would have been hanging over from the whole Italy thing as well. Daniel has come in the comments and says he expects Lazio to drop off this season, which I think might be a bit harsh given how they performed last season. Who knows? We'll see. One of the other big games then, Napoli-Milan, 2-1 again at the San Paolo. Napoli probably better value than 2-1, as Roma could have been. But Milan weren't actually that bad. Nick, they just seemed like they were lacking a lot in attack. What do you make of it? They've spent a lot of money this season, but they still lack a bit of firepower up front.
It's funny that, and who are they starting up front? Nikola
Someone
Kalinic.
That's not very good, I would argue.
Quickly just on Milan as a whole, I agree with you. I don't think they played bad. For that kind of match, I guess taking it out of the context of their season, they played a decent match against that Napoli outfit. You know, there's not too much to be disappointed at given their opposition. I said it before when they were looking at Kalinic. I said it when he was starting for them, and I'll say it again. I don't understand why he starts or plays that often for him. For Milan, particularly when they've spent on the likes of Andrea Silva. I just don't think he's consistent enough in front of goal. And for a team in Milan's position, they need to be taking their chances, and he simply doesn't provide that. So, but Milan, I still think, there's lots of good signs there. So I really want to encourage Rossoneri fans to stick with it, because it'll get better for you guys.
Yeah, well, you're speaking from personal experience there with Inter over the last few seasons. But I completely agree with Kalinic. I should maybe play devil's advocate here. Our very own Vieri Capretta is a keen defender of him, but I think even he admits that scoring goals isn't really his strength. He's kind of like the Andrea Petagna type, where he does everything else really well, but scoring goals just isn't his main strength in attack. But when you're Milan and you're playing with really one goal threat in your team, you do need your striker to kind of contribute a bit more. Vito, Nick mentioned Andrea Silva. I was going to bring him up next. Do you think he deserves to get a few more starts?
When he came on, he didn't look overly impressive, but Kalinic has been so bad. I think that Andrea Silva has to play just for the sake of keeping Kalinic on the bench, because Kalinic has been a huge disappointment. If it's not Andrea Silva, at least give Patrick Cotrone more time, because he started well in pre-season and also early on in the campaign, so perhaps he deserves more time too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like Cotrone a lot, and I do think he has the ability to not be a key player, but he could probably be a regular first team player, and he should probably be getting a few more minutes than he's getting now. Nick, Ricardo Montolivo played. Why is he still a thing that happens in this Milan team, given the amount of money they spent and his obvious lack of ability?
You know what I was very excited about at the start of this season? I thought, you know what, we're going to go on the podcast and we're not going to have to talk about Ricardo Montolivo. And yet here we are, 13 weeks in, and I don't understand why it's something we have to talk about. Why is it a thing? Why does this exist? What does he provide? I've never understood. And he's still there. He's still doing, I don't know, filling space.
That's it. What does he do? Because I watched this game the other night, and up until, I don't know how long, but it was into the second half, and he came up on the screen. I was thinking, oh, wow, is he playing? I didn't realize. He's supposed to be the guy that is at the center of everything they do, and he's still there. I remember there was a tweet in the summer that I really enjoyed. Apologies to whoever tweeted it because I forget, but it was something along the lines of, the best signing Milan make this summer is the one who makes Ricardo Montolivo irrelevant. And they did that. They brought in Luca Piglia, but I don't know. Montolivo is still there playing in big games. Vito, do you want to jump in on this? Do you think Montolivo still has a role to play at Milan?
Absolutely not. As far as I'm concerned, Ricardo Montolivo is another one of those wasted talents, or flat track bullies, if you like. I've noticed that whenever he scores, and this is throughout his career, it's either against teams that are just not able to compete against the Italian sides in Europe, or the promoted sides that really struggle in Serie A and just make up the numbers. So when you have Ricardo Montolivo around, you're not going to get someone who can provide leadership or provide a moment of magic. I think he was touted as someone with potential, but he never lived up to it. So it's about time that Milan and Serie A in general just say good riddance to him. I mean, just get rid of him and let the new generation come through. Stick with Locatelli through thick and thin, and make sure that Manuel Locatelli lives up to expectations or exceeds them, because I think cultural fans in general have had enough of Montolivo.
Vito, in a word, should we send Ricardo Montolivo to Genoa?
Yes.
There we go. All right, you mentioned Locatelli. I wasn't going to mention this because he's young. He's going to make mistakes. But Milan had a free kick about, 35 yards from goal. Last kick of the game. Everyone was up. Donnarumma was up. All Locatelli had to do was put it in the box, and he just kicked it straight out of play. It was awful. It kind of reminded me of something you would see Montolivo doing. But yeah, we've had our first Montella out comment come in the live comments, which I'm happy about. Montella out before it's too late. We have a question from Ronnie about Napoli. We'll get to that in a second. What else did we want to talk about Milan? I think that might have been it, actually. Nick, should Montella be gone, or what's he doing?
He's making it very difficult to keep defending him, I will admit. But I'll still stick with my original thing that he deserves till at least January to see this through. I still don't agree with a lot of what he's doing, but I think he deserves at least that.
Yeah, I would agree. He's supposed to be this coach that comes in and implements a decent enough style, though. And I know it's tough, but that has not happened this season. Vito, just before we move on, actually, did I see you compare Marco Verratti to Ricardo Montolivo in the last week?
Yes, in fact, I did. Just not one of my Forza Italian football pieces, but just a blog that I keep here and there. It's usually more longer worded, probably sometimes more controversial, my stuff. But yeah, unfortunately, Marco Verratti is not living up to his potential. He was seen as the heir to Pirlo, and at the moment, from what we've seen, at least on his Azzurri performances, I think the comparisons with Montalivo are somewhat justified in my opinion.
Yeah, I must admit I did chuckle, and I quite liked the comparison when I first saw it. Next time you're gonna write something like that that's a bit controversial, a bit divisive, let me know and we'll get it up on Forza Italian Football and just let people lose their minds. Daniel's back in the comments
Nice.
and he says he defended Montella while everyone else was calling for his head, but he's now pretty sure he doesn't know what he is doing. Yeah, I don't know where I'll come on. I think I'm going to side with Nick for now, though, and just give him a little bit more time, see what happens. Give him till January or something, and then yeah, off with his head. Napoli, then they won the game after all. We should probably be talking about them. Lorenzo Insigne scored. There was some like fake controversy over it because I thought the referees and VAR did a brilliant job on that one. It was implemented so perfectly. I was very happy with that. Nick, I'm sure you were too. You like VAR. But one of the questions relates to something I was going to ask. Where is it? I feel that Gulam injury is going to hurt Napoli a lot. Their overall squad depth is poor and they need quality backups. Do you think that that injury could cost them the title? Which leads on to what I was going to ask is, are Mario Rui and Maggio good enough stand-ins for Napoli, considering how long Gulam's going to be out for? I should have really thrown that to someone. Vito, you jump in and take it.
Nice. Well, Mario Rui had a decent game against AC Milan, so maybe in the long term he could actually provide something. Maggio, I'm a bit concerned only because of his age, whereas with Mario Rui, the thing is that he's a player that Sarri knows from his Empoli days, and like Piotr Zielinski, he knows him prior to the Napoli days. So maybe from that aspect, he's already familiar with Sarri's coaching, and it wouldn't be as bad as buying someone brand new who's not familiar with the way Sarri instructs his players.
Yeah, I would worry about Maggio more so than Rui as well, because he's just not very good. He hasn't been very good for quite a while. I think it was it in 2012 when Chelsea did that comeback against Napoli? I think Maggio was kind of past his best then. And this is what, 5 years on. He's still knocking about, which I do think it is time they got in a few more defensive reinforcements there. Nick, I was going to actually throw that to you. Do you think that Napoli's squad is quite as deep as we might have initially thought? Because at the start of the season, that was one thing we said, is that they kind of added this depth with the youngsters coming through, but do they still maybe need a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing where the midfield we're probably looking at a lot, and even up front there is a bit of depth. But those wide defensive positions, and, to be fair to Napoli, you could say throughout the whole Serie A, an injury out wide to a defender, and a lot of teams are looking short in those areas. So it is quite a key position in modern times, and it's such a hard one for particularly looking at Fatih Goulam, because I think he was up there with the best left backs in the world this season. His form was just incredible. So far away from where he's been in previous seasons. And not only that, but in the context of Napoli's left flank, I think their whole left side movement between Goulam, Hamsik and Insigne is just, I mean, that pretty much makes up a lot of Napoli's attack. And so in that context, it's such a big loss, because he provided so much going forward, assisting Hamsik and assisting Insigne, and delivering balls into the box for even Mertens and Callejon. So, there's a lot to his game that Napoli certainly will miss. So, Rui, I think he's quite a good player. He's a solid player. I don't think he would probably go in quite comfortably to most teams in Serie A, but it's just the fact that it's hard boots to fill with Gulam. So, and that's the thing with Napoli. We probably, Connor, you and me picked them for the title, but we probably would have put a little kind of asterisk to that if certain players keep healthy. And, he's a big loss. So I'll still back them at the moment, but yeah, let's hope they can kind of feel that. But certainly Maggio, I'll say, he's not up to it. So I'll completely throw him out of the
We'll ship
discussion.
him off we'll ship him off to Genoa as well with Riccardo Montalivo and anyone else that we don't like. But no, Nick, you kind of hit the nail on the head there for me. Gulam is probably one of the best fullbacks in the world, not even just on the left, but on either side. Myself and Kev P actually discussed this briefly last season, and there aren't really many world-class fullbacks or wingbacks around anymore. And Kev wrote a piece for us saying that Gulam had a shout at being the best left back in the world, and it got a mixed response. But I think that was mainly people reading the headline and not the actual article, justifying the headline. But yeah, you kind of answered one of my questions as well. I was going to ask, are Napoli still on for our preseason predictions of the title? You're standing with it, Vito. Are you still confident that they'll be there or thereabouts?
I'm still confident. Well, they got the win on the weekend, and hopefully they maintain that form, even with the loss of Gulam and the loss of Milik too. So I don't think there's enough signs to suggest that things will change or that Napoli will decline as yet.
Yeah, one thing I couldn't help watching this game is Lorenzo Insigne. Lads, it's a real shame he's not Italian, because Italy could have done with someone like him in those two games against Sweden. If only. If only.
Yeah.
There's only one obvious place to go now, and that is Sampdoria Juventus. The scoreline says it was 3-2, but don't get us wrong, that was a hammering. If the match was 90 minutes, Samp won 3-0. Juventus' 2 goals don't really mean that much, except they've got 2 really good players in attack. But Samp absolutely smashed them, and there is only one person to start with here. Vito, just take it away.
Well, on social media, the Sampdoria fan page, the Twitter account, referred to the Stadio Luigi Ferraris as Sampland. 6 wins in a row at home. That's pretty remarkable, and we didn't even do that in the Scudetto season of 1990-91, so that's an incredible achievement. Personally, I would use the word Doria world, emphasize on the Doria, why not? Anyway, the game itself, I think it's just a testament to Marco Giampaolo's coaching, just tight in defense, but very fluid when in possession. And it showed that although Juve might have rested a few players just for the Champions League, it seemed that they were reliant on individuals to try and create something, and they were rather wasteful, the Bianconeri. As Sampdoria, they were a bit nervous in the first half, in my opinion, but in the second half, there was greater confidence, better movement, much better fluidity in the play. And although we were leading 3-0, I felt that Valerio Verre could have made it 4, Carroll could have added to the scoring, and even Zapata, before Torreira made it 2-0, he could have scored as well, but then Szczesny made the save. So really, I think 3-2 looks generous, but of course, over the 90 minutes, if something didn't concede those goals to Juve and they added more themselves, I think it would have created even more shockwaves than what it's done already.
So what you're saying is Sam should have won 6-0, yeah?
Oh, I think the way the game was going, I think it would have been a distinct possibility. But of course, by the time it was 3-0, result was in the bag, and Juve, they didn't provide much resistance until the very end. And like I was saying earlier, just when they went forward, they just seemed so unimaginative, which is really disappointing for Juventini. But of course, as a Samp supporter, I'm just glad to take the 3 points, and there was the performance to justify it too.
Yeah, would definitely agree with that. Nick, we have spoken a lot about AC Milan on this season's podcast, and particularly Leonardo Bonucci. Do you think that he is more missed at Juventus than he is well received at Milan this season?
Yeah, you just certainly say so. Juve, just their defense in particular, just looks a shadow of what it used to be. Simple things like defending off set pieces, or even just clearing a ball. They look poor at times, and it's creating opportunities for their opposition. You've got the likes of Stefan Lacksteiner in there, who's you have to wonder why. He certainly doesn't look up to the standard. And not only that, but in front of the defense, there just looks like there's so much space in right in the center, and Sampdoria certainly took advantage of that. Particularly, I think it was the third goal, with Torreira's goal, where he just had so much room to move. But it's a concern. But I think this is just the changing of the guard in a way. I was looking at some where things were last season, and Juve had conceded just 9 goals at this point, while Lazio, Napoli, Roma, Inter had all conceded 14 or more. This season, Juve's conceded 14 goals, and Napoli, Inter, and Roma have all conceded under 10 goals. So, and we talk constantly about this whole, the best defensive team wins the titles. So that kind of, I quite like that, because it's almost illustrates that shift in things. So it's interesting, but yeah, certainly defense is looking key once again, and Juve are not near the best at it anymore.
So I think that's one of the best stats you've brought to the table this season, Nick, and they're usually quite good, to be fair, but that just takes it for me. It's kind of a bit of a truism that attack can often be the best form of defence, especially in the case of Napoli, isn't it, I guess? But I think one thing that's probably been overlooked is Leonardo Bonucci isn't just missed defensively for Juve. He was their playmaker. I know he was a defender, but every time he got the ball, he carried it into midfield and played those long diagonals over the top, or just found space to pass the ball into. And I think he's arguably being missed more in that regard than he is defensively, especially Marquisio's over the hill now as well, so he doesn't really occupy or command that midfield anymore. But yeah, Vito, do you think Juventus are lacking a bit of depth this season? I know they brought in players like Bernardeschi and Douglas Costa, but it more, I don't know, weak beyond their first 11 than we might have thought in the summer?
To an extent, you could say that, but I still think in general the Juventus squad is a very good one, and still on paper probably the best in Serie A. I just think with this particular game, the personnel that Allegri put onto the park in a way probably might have upset the balance of the normal squad, or just the way that they normally play. So, for instance, Bernardeschi as a number 10, I think he's got the right attributes for that role. But I think against a well-organised team like Samp, and also at the Luigi Ferraris, I think it was perhaps not the best time to integrate him into that role. And also you had Wojciech Szczęsny in goal. I don't think the goals were entirely his fault, but maybe that might have been a time that he might not have played. Or another thing too, probably more so than Szczęsny, is in fact that Chiellini started the game. I reckon probably someone like Benatia might have been handy. Or as you said, if Bonucci was still there, probably have him partner Rugani. But I just think the general balance of the team, and also just the whole mindset of the team against Sampdoria, I don't think Juve were really as sharp or as determined as they usually would.
Yes, I was actually out before this game kicked off, and the person I was with kind of said, "Oh, look at Juventus' team. Look how strong their bench is." And I remember they're playing Samp. They're taking Samp a bit lightly here. It doesn't matter how strong your bench is if you don't get the 3 points. And kind of said they might be in a bit of trouble. I didn't see that coming though, because Samp just played them off the park. One player who stood out again this week, and for me, if we were to make up a team of the season so far, he'd be the first name on it, is Lucas Torreira. I picked him out as one of the young players to watch in Serie A this season, something I did before the season. So I've got a bit of a vested interest in bringing him up all the time. But Nick, he is going to be a superstar.
100%. He's just has such an impact in that team. He provides a presence that really should far surpass the maturity of a 21-year-old. It's a bit ridiculous, actually. He controls everything in the middle. He directs play. He keeps that team so organized. He's strong in defense. Against Juve, he had the match high of tackle count. But then he provides great service as well up front, into the middle, both in open play and from set pieces. And he can certainly strike the ball. And I think we saw all of those elements against Juve. There's just so many aspects to his game. And I think every Samp game where they've kind of surprised us with the result, where they've won, where we thought maybe we didn't really predict it, he's always starred in the game. He's consistently performs at that level, which makes it even more impressive. You see so often these youngsters come up and, they show so much promise and we talk about them, but game on, one game off. But he is constantly just such a strong player in that Samp midfield. So yeah, I would really love for him to stay at Samp for a couple seasons. I'd hate for a team after this season so early. I think some development in this team for a couple of seasons would do the world for him. So I hope for his and Samp's sake that he can stay there and develop, because he's 21 and he's already world class. So
that's the thing. You again, Nick, this is your best performance on the podcast because you hit the nail on the head again there.
Oh, thanks, man.
He offers so much more than just. He's Uruguayan, isn't he? Vito, correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yes, he is Uruguayan, and I'm actually staggered that Tabares has not called him up for the Uruguayan national team yet. I think if he gets called up to the World Cup squad, he could be one of the stars of the tournament. That's my big shout.
I'd agree with that. But as I was going to say there, you get these kind of defensive midfielders from Uruguay, and often they're just hard men who kick people and are really, really nasty to play against. He can do that, but then when he gets the ball, as Nick said, he can pick passes, he can create chances, he rarely loses the ball, and he's just so good. He's a complete midfielder already, and he's probably got the energy of about a 15-year-old, but the head of a 30-year-old, because he's just so clever on the ball. I could see Vito just sitting back there smiling as we were talking about Samp there, because normally Samp come up, we throw it over to Vito, and we just let him speak, but Samp are kind of making everyone sit up and pay attention this season, and Lucas Torreira is one of the reasons for that. I do hate to do this, because often when a player doesn't play or plays brilliantly at one of the not the big six clubs, basically, you automatically think he'd do a great job with X and Y. We saw that with Atalanta last season. Everyone was linking everyone to Milan, Napoli, but how perfectly would Torreira fit in this Napoli team? He would just work so well. Vito, I'm sorry. I do want him to stay at Samp for a little bit longer, but how good would he work? Come on.
Well, they've got Jorginho already, and they've got Amadou Diawara, so they're well covered in those positions. But if Napoli did have someone like Lucas Torreira, I think he's tougher than Jorginho and also Diawara. And I think now that he's adding goals, I think in a team like Napoli's, he would add another scoring outlet. And that's pretty staggering when you consider that the front three provides enough goals, and Marek Hamsik and even Zielinski, they can provide their share of goals too. So, it's an interesting topic for the theorists and the romantics to discuss.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you or anything, because I do want them to stay at Samp. I like Sampdoria. But right, Nick, it's time to address the elephant in the room. Inter beat Atalanta 2-0. It was pretty straightforward, let's be honest. I'm not trying to deflect from the result, but I think it's fair to say Atalanta had half an eye on Europe this Thursday, taking off Gomez with a bit of time left, but Atalanta were really, really bad. Nick, we were kind of chatting throughout this, and I was saying it's probably the worst I've seen them play, other than the second half against Sampdoria this season, and even going back to this time last year. But what did you make of it then? It just kind of was settled by Icardi's brilliance, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd love to come out and say that it was, two quality teams playing 90 minutes of fantastic football, but no, it wasn't really the case. To be honest, I think you're probably being a bit harsh on Atalanta. I don't actually think they were that bad.
Couldn't pass the ball, Nick.
Well, to be honest, I think both teams, particularly in the first half, were just sluggish. The international break seemed to really have an effect. There were so many misplaced passes from both teams. Vecino and Gagliardini for Inter, I thought in the first half were, I won't say woeful, but they were pretty poor. And Vecino just went missing for large places. To be honest, I thought Cristante and Darun for Atalanta were quite strong. Atalanta were pressing high, and they made it very difficult for Inter, particularly in that first half. So I think off the ball, Atalanta weren't half bad. They made life difficult, and they provided so little space in the kind of moving towards the final third and in the center of the park. So at halftime, I think Atalanta would have been happy in that. That's the kind of game that they would have wanted Inter to be playing, and they were forcing Inter off their game. So in that respects, I thought, it was a good way to approach the game, and I thought they were going okay. But yeah, certainly the quality of the match as a whole wasn't great. And as you said, it did come down to some finishing quality from one Mauro Icardi, and time and time again, he's showing us how brilliant of a striker he is. He doesn't need many chances. I think I was looking at some stats. He's overtaken Dybala in terms of the leading goal scorer for the season, but he only ranks 10th in Serie A for shots per game. So, and that just shows how clinical he is. He doesn't need chances, or many chances, just a couple, and he will put them away. So that was certainly the difference. But Inter, I think these are the matches that Inter were drawing last season and at sometimes losing. And that's the difference. They can play, relatively poor now and get away with a win. And a comfortable win, let's say, in the second half, right, Connor?
I think you did this on purpose. This is the type of match that Inter drew or lost last season, isn't it, Nick? Will we go back to March?
well, okay, that's a bit of an anomaly, but the games where the quality's bad, it's not quite working, but they get the goals and they move on to the next week. I don't think Spalletti would be keen to look at this kind of match video too much. It's one of those games that there were some poor elements to it, but got the 3 points. That's the important thing. And likewise for Atalanta, I think they'd be quite happy to move past it. Like you said, they've got Europe ahead. So yeah, that's one of those games. Move on. There'll be brighter things ahead for both teams. Let's hope.
Yeah, I very much take that standpoint as well, because I tweeted straight after the game. I'm not too disheartened by that. At times, you just can't really do much about Mauro Icardi. Like you said, he gets 2 chances and he scores them. Was it from him that Berisha blocked the chance in the first half? Like, it could have been 1-0 earlier than it was, but Icardi's second goal in particular, I just thought was a brilliant header, and it wasn't even really that much of a chance, but he made it into a goal. I was a bit worried about Cristante playing in that deep role. I know he does it sometimes, but against the bigger teams, I find that he likes to get forward and he can sometimes neglect his defensive duties. Don't want to talk about Atalanta too much because I know you guys give out to me, but we did actually get an Atalanta-based question this week.
What?
And it was from Jonathan Mangas, and he is active in the comments there at the moment, so we have to address it, guys. Vito, I will let you take it, and I can kind of chip in as well if you like. And it's basically just what has happened to Martin de Roon since returning from Middlesbrough. He seems like half the player he was before he left. Something that I'd agree with. Vito, have you any hot takes on this?
Well, from probably what I've seen of him, I remember when he was playing under Eddie Rea, he was in that middle of the midfield trio, so that might have suited him much better, whereas under Gasparini, it's more of a 3-4-1-2, if you like. So that setup might not suit him the best, but we'll have to see what happens as the season progresses. But the way I look at de Roon just generally as a player, I see him as more of a ball winner, whereas the players that Atalanta have in midfield, the best ones or the ones in form, they're usually more the box-to-box types. And in my opinion, I don't see de Roon as being that type of player. I don't know about you, Connor. Obviously, you would watch him a lot more than me, so maybe you see things a bit differently.
Lads, I'm nearly sitting here standing up applauding you two. You're absolutely smashing it tonight because, Vito, you've just hit on everything I was going to say. I do think he's a lot more comfortable in that midfield three. I do think he still has a role to play in the two, but he is more of a ball-winning midfielder. He can do the box-to-box stuff, but not quite as well as the likes of Freuler and Cristante. But yeah, I do think if he was playing in a midfield three, you'd see the best of him. Midfield two, he's not quite at his peak because when he's got two players playing either side of him, he wins the ball brilliantly, intercepts passes, and then just gives it short and lets the other guys take care of the business from there. But when there is a little bit more responsibility on him to kind of take some lead of his own and kind of move forward with the ball, he's not quite capable of doing it. Nick, I thought you were generous. I didn't think he was that great on, what night was it, Sunday night. He had a few sloppy touches and that, but again...
that was off the ball that I was kind of focusing on, not so much on the ball.
All right, yeah, well, the defensive stuff's just his bread and butter, really. And again, he was brilliant under Eddie Rea when Atalanta used to sit back and just invite pressure on them. They're not really that team anymore. They look, as Nick said, to get in your face, hassle you, and then kind of attack themselves, which attacking wasn't a thing that happened that much under Eddie Rea. But all right, guys, that will be enough Atalanta. Johnny, I hope you're happy. I certainly am. We got to talk about Atalanta for a bit. But elsewhere, there were a few red cards. I think there were 4. Spal drew with Fiorentina, which was a big result. Genoa won. Sorry, Vito. But Benevento, guys.
Oh, man.
Nick, they just keep breaking our hearts.
What do they have to do?
This is it, because they had a point against Cagliari. They had it in their hands, and they threw it away in the last minute. And then, what was it? 1-1 after 90 minutes. And then Sassuolo got a penalty and missed it in the 91st.
Yeah.
And then Sassuolo got the winner in the 94th minute. The Witches. Nick, what's going on? How long will it be before they pick up a point?
I don't know. It's worrying. I feel so bad for them. I think they've broken the record now.
Yeah.
Of the worst start in 87 years, beating Manchester United's effort from 1930s.
They play Atalanta away next. So
there you go.
That's where they pick up their first point, isn't it? It's going to be a 1-1 draw like the game against Spal was. I'm always pessimistic about stuff like this. Atalanta played Verona. I think it must be 2 seasons ago. It was the year they got relegated. And it was February or something. And Verona hadn't won that season. So it was, 7 months into the season. Verona hadn't won. They went to Bergamo, and of course, they won.
I think I remember that match, actually.
Oh, you probably remember my reaction. That was back in the good old Eddie Rea days, I think. But, yeah, Benevento, Nick, they're relegated, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I think that's a given. But you got to hope they can just, earn some kind of respect or bring a bit of dignity back to Campania, because they're kind of letting the South down. That's harsh. I don't want to say that. It's so tough for a team like that with their kind of budget to come into Serie A, and to be honest, it brings a lot of bigger scale questions to the league, which a lot of people are starting to talk about on social media. But we won't get into that now. But it's tough. There's not much you can do.
You do have to feel for them because they're not a Serie A club. Let's be honest, they're
They're
not
not.
big enough for it. But it's nice to see them for the season. One club who I think might be in a bit of trouble this season is Udinese. Bottom three at the moment is Benevento, Verona, and Genoa. But Udinese are what, 3 points ahead of the bottom three? They were beaten by Cagliari at the weekend. Vito, do you think there's a chance they could drop into that bottom three by the end of the season?
I still think there's a top chance because there's not much quality in general there. They still have a lot of imports in the squad, and they're not the quality ones that they had 6-7 years ago. So, and I also think Luigi Del Neri is past it as a coach. So, I really don't see how they can turn it around under him. But there doesn't seem to be the same talent identification like they used to have, or there's as much desire in the club. I also get the impression that perhaps the Pozzo family who own Udinese, as well as Watford, they're probably more focused on Watford now, and they're doing well in the Premier League. So it's like Udinese is sort of like a hobby now and not a real investment or something they really have at heart.
Yeah, Nick, did you want to jump there? Yeah, so I heard you making noises.
Oh, yep, just yeah. I think Vito kind of was spot on there. I think the Pozzos just their focus is very much on Watford. It seems it's Udinese is just kind of letting it run, but I mean, there's not much happening there. It's very bland, I think, over there, unfortunately for Udinese fans. So yeah.
All right, I'm getting shouted at in the comments. It wasn't Locatelli who took the final free kick of the game. It was Biglia. Sorry if I got that wrong. I was 95% certain it was Locatelli, but if I'm wrong, I hold my hands up. Serie B is still brilliant. Well, I'm not to be proven wrong yet. I'll go hunt out that video. Serie B is still really good. Top three at the moment are Bari, Parma, and Venezia, which would be brilliant if the three of those came up. Parma, obvious romantic reasons. Venezia, kind of similarly. And then Bari, just because they're really, really southern. And Nick, I know you could get behind their bid for promotion. But 15 rounds in, and there are still just 13 points separating top from bottom. So we have a 22-team title race in Serie B, realistically. Nick, give me three teams. Who do you want to come up this season?
Bari, Foggia. Foggia's coming up. They're in good form. Watch out for them, everyone. Who else? Palermo, I've seen enough for them to stick out. Now Parma. It would be good to see them back in Serie A.
All right, Vito, have you got any preferences?
Well, I think the way things are looking, it's pretty much settled there, but definitely Parma and Bari. Parma and Bari. Well, with Bari, good to see Fabio Grosso doing well, the 2006 World Cup hero. Plus Bari, I think after going into bankruptcy a few years back, they're coming up. Plus, good to see the son Nicola, filling up. That would be great to see. Parma, another big rise after the fall they had. Lorenzo Insigne's brother Roberto is starting to come good, so it's good to see another Insigne providing some magic on the wings. My third choice, I really don't like it when teams just yo-yo around, but I'm really liking the look of Empoli under Vincenzo Vivarini because he's really providing a team that they do leak goals, but they score more than they concede. And the front line of, I think it's Donnarumma and Caputo. I might need to double check on that one. They've been very lethal. So, it looks like there's another good coach that Empoli has unearthed.
Is that another Donnarumma brother?
I don't think he's a relative of Gianluca. I could be wrong there. I know that Gianluca's brother Antonio is at AC Milan now as a reserve goalkeeper, but the one at Empoli, I think his name's Alfredo. I'll need to double check that one. Yeah.
All right, that would be interesting if everyone's brother was just playing in Serie B.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Any other business? Anything either of you want to bring up before we end this?
A lot of crazy games in Serie B, really. I mean, as I mentioned with Empoli, they bet Cesena 5-3. Most of the goals came in the last 20, 30 minutes. So And there have been a lot of high-scoring games too. So Parma beat Ascoli 4-0. Perugia got a 5-0 win. So at least in Serie B, the goals are really flowing this season.
Vito, I got to ask, is there any reason for these high-scoring games? Are there attack-minded coaches in Serie B or something?
Look, I think going back to the piece I wrote for the Forza Italian football website, I still think that there are a lot of these coaches, they're not the conservative-minded ones of yesteryear. There's a lot more coaches that want to be more attacking. And there's that desire to entertain and believe that they can get results that way. The only coach I'd say would be conservative is Pippo Inzaghi at Venezia. They got the tightest defense in the competition, but everyone else has that desire to score more than the opposition. So I'm really liking the look of Serie B this season.
I'm actually going to see Venezia in like 3 weeks. Going to see them play against Pro Vercelli with Luca. So hopefully they come out and play a bit that day, and they're not too defensive.
Venezia?
Yes, I want to see it before they kind of move out and become too modern and all that. So we're doing a bit of a tour of Northern Italy, which will be nice.
Thanks for the invite, mate.
Where are you living at the moment?
Sydney?
Yeah, exactly.
That's 24 hours. I can make it.
It would take you longer to get there than we will spend in Italy, probably. Nick, have you anything to say before we conclude?
I'll just give a quick shout out to the Socceroos who have made their 4th World Cup in a row.
World Cup talk. It's a sensitive issue.
I want to put it out there to Italian fans are hurting, and I'll admit I was, of course, hurting as an Italian of Italian heritage. But if you're looking for someone to support, jump on the Australian bandwagon. It'll be a good ride in Russia, so get on. Or otherwise, Ireland.
Why'd you do that?
Sorry, Connor. I'm so sorry. Australia, get on it. Back to you, Connor. Would you like me to finish this?
I'd like to finish you at this moment in time. But yeah, no, that's it. Nick, you're on Twitter at Nick said Carroll, Vito at Vito C Doria. I'm at Con J Clancy. You can follow us on Twitter at Serie A FFC, Facebook and Instagram at Forza Italian Football. We go to games and post videos and stuff from there. Read the website ForzaItalianFootball.com. There's good Serie A stuff there. Yeah, Nick's kind of ruined my mood for the end. But yeah, all that is left for me to say is ciao for now. Guys, say goodbye.
Ciao.
Ciao, everyone.